Good morning, everyone. Today, my topic is going to be assessment of vitreoretinal interface alterations in diabetic macular edema treated with intravitreal anti-VEGF injections. I don't have any financial disclosure in this study. So, as we all know, diabetic retinopathy it's a major cause of blindness worldwide. At present, we can see more than 93 million people who suffer from diabetic retinopathy. And by this ratio, it is predicted that by 2030, around 430 million people will be affected if there is not any proper like screening is not done, if it continues at the same rate. And in diabetic retinopathy, as we know, diabetic macular edema, it is the most important cause of visual loss. After demonstration of efficacy of various therapies targeting the VEGF by a number of clinical trials, we know that intravitreal anti-VEGFs have become the treatment of choice for treating the central diabetic macular edema. And in these patients, the role of vitreomacular interface, it is key in the emergence and progression and response to the treatment in several retinal diseases. Epiretinal membrane existence in a patient with diabetic macular edema, it serves as an important clinical factor during the reduction, in the therapeutic effects of anti-VEGF. It can also lead to limited visual acuity improvement and also the necessity of surgical intervention as a part of maculopathy treatment. The possible contribution of anti-VEGF agents for the fibrotic process, it has been proposed previously, but recently it was reported that bevacizumab can exert a pro-fibrotic effect in human umbilical vein endothelial cells in vitro. So previous studies have documented tractional retinal detachment in eyes with severe PDR following intravitreal anti-VEGF injections. So our aim in this study, it was to see whether the anti-VEGFs that we are giving to the patients, whether they have any kind of fibrotic effect for the development of vitreomacular interface abnormalities in diabetic eyes, those eyes that were not having any fibrotic changes or any membrane before we gave them the injection. So ours was a hospital-based retrospective observational study. It was conducted in SKIMS Medical College. So we included 101 eyes in our study, and the patients with diabetic macular edema were involved. They at least completed 9 months of the follow-up. So our patients were divided into two groups: 50 eyes with anti-VEGF group and that had diabetic macular edema and received intravitreal injections, and 51 eyes of the control group that were without significant diabetic macular edema, though diabetic changes were found in the fundus. The groups were comparable in terms of diabetes duration as well as the HbA1c levels. So most importantly, our inclusion criteria was we included those patients in our study who had diabetic macular edema more than 320 microns, as was measured by SD-OCT, and with loss of visual acuity. So the exclusion criteria was existence of any other retinal disease like ARMD, vascular occlusion. Patients, those were having glaucoma, they were also excluded from the study. Previous treatment for diabetic macular edema, like prior photocoagulation or any other intraocular surgery, it was those patients were excluded. Patients with iris neovascularization, any intraocular inflammation, any history of trauma, they were also excluded from the study. So our testing protocols was BCVA, best corrected visual acuity. It was measured at the initial, that is at the baseline visit of the patient. Slit lamp biomicroscopy was done in order to see the anterior pole before mydriasis, to identify any media opacity, to identify any iris neovascularization, which could hamper our results while we were dealing with the study. Then we had to do intraocular pressure measurement, gonioscopy, direct and indirect ophthalmoscopy, and then fundus fluorescein angiography of the patients was also done. And the assessment of the vitreoretinal interface was done by spectral domain OCT for the quantitative measurement of the macular edema and to see development of any other vitreomacular interface abnormality after we gave them the intravitreal injections of anti-VEGFs, like epiretinal membrane formation, like vitreomacular traction development, and macular hole formation in few patients which was seen. So visual acuity was measured and CMT was measured at the baseline. Then all the patients, they received at least one VEGF, but wherever required, we had to give multiple doses, we gave it. So follow-up measurement was initially done at 1 week after the injection and then monthly thereafter. In patients that required multiple doses, as I already said, so repeated injections were given wherever it was required. After proper statistical analysis and after seeing, like in the control group and in our study group, the age was comparable. It was statistically insignificant. So gender distribution, there was again no difference based upon the gender distribution of the patients. And the systemic diseases, which is an important factor in this study. We only included those patients in the study and when both the groups were comparable in terms of hypertension and in terms of any coronary artery disease. So diabetes duration and the HbA1c levels were also comparable for both the groups. So then what we find after completion of the follow-up in these patients, the case group, that is those, they were given the injections, we found that out of all, around 12% of our patients.
Your time's up. Please sum up.
Okay, sorry. Around 12% of the patients developed epiretinal membrane in our case group, whereas in control group, only 2% of the patients develop epiretinal membranes. And vitreomacular traction was developed in 6% of the patients, and macular hole in 4% of the patients.
I'm really sorry, ma'am, but due to the lack of time, we will really have to stop.
So I'm just moving to the end. So in the conclusion in our study, it was that the patients with significant diabetic macular edema who went these intravitreal injections, 22% of the eyes developed these changes as compared to 4% in the control groups. And this difference was statistically significant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Orfa. Commendable work again. Dr. Parth, you want to give any comment before I give my comment?
You told about VMD. If you found VMD, did you continue with the injections or not?
Sorry, sir, you're not audible.
You told about vitreomacular tractions in your cases.
Yes,
so
sir.
If you found vitreomacular tractions, did you continue with the injections or not?
So we continued with the injection, but at the same time, if treatment was required, like ILM peeling and all, if the traction was so severe, so that patient was followed with that treatment as well. If surgical intervention was required, we did that in that patient.
Okay.
So basically, you want to say, yeah, any kind of traction maculopathy has to be dealt differently. Yeah, that's a
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you very much for a nice presentation.